Hello, thank you for taking some time to watch this recording of our information session about the Community Roots Day Camp program. So what follows will be a conversation with me and a few priests in our diocese about what this program is, and then they had some questions for me as well. Throughout this video, I'll refer to an email that I sent to the participants at the end. If you would like a copy of that email, or if there's any other information you would like me to send to you about the program, I'd be really happy to do that. I'll tell you my email address now, and I'll include it at the end of the video as well, just in case. So you can reach me at youthandfamily, all one word, no dots, no underscores, no nothing, youthandfamily@nspeidiocese.ca. All right, I hope you enjoy this recording. So before we begin, I acknowledge that we are gathered virtually, but all physically on Mi'kmaq, the traditional and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people, and that this land is covered by the treaties of peace and friendship, treaties which are every bit as valid and important today as they were on the day that they were signed. And a thing about Community Roots is that for this summer, we received funding from PWRDF for this program, specifically to incorporate content around caring for creation and responding to our changing climate. And I think Indigenous knowledge of this land, of this place, has so much to offer to that piece of our programming and to that work that we will all do together. And the work of reconciliation and honoring Indigenous people and of being in relationship in this place can be a meaningful part of this ministry and of all ministries that we do as Anglicans in Mi'kmaq. So I encourage you to consider that for camp and for all other ministries that you are part of. So welcome to this info session, and thank you so much for making some time to be here for this conversation today. So I'll start by just talking a little bit about the big picture vision and mission of Community Roots Day Camp. So I think the first and most obvious piece of this work is to provide day camp opportunities for kids throughout the diocese, especially in communities where they haven't been able to do it before, or haven't been able to do it in a while, but there's a need to offer something for kids in that community. The second piece is to build capacity for leadership in children's ministry. So we collaborate in the preparation and facilitation of the camp with local volunteers and with clergy in the parishes. And we offer training for all of the people who will be involved in camp so that they come to the week of camp prepared and with all the knowledge that they need, but also so that when camp is over, it's not just one really great week and then it's done, but that we leave behind people in that community who have the skills, the information, and are hopefully feeling empowered to continue to offer ministry for children and families throughout the year. And the third piece is to facilitate relationship building between the parish and kids who are in that community. So this is kind of builds on that last piece, but that really is the primary relationship that we focus on connecting, not the staff and campers connecting to one another, but really facilitating the relationship between people who will be in community with those kids after the week of camp is over, so that, if your parish goes on to offer messy church or something down the road, it's familiar faces, it's people that they know and feel comfortable with who are there continuing to serve them. So that's the pretty high level picture of what we do and what we're all about. And I think those big pieces really, every piece of what we do at Community Roots really reflects those things. This isn't a program that has a big dream and then kind of, just does fun things that aren't connected. Everything really is rooted in and comes back to those three things. So there are lots of different ways to do day camps or vacation Bible schools or summer programming for kids. So I just thought it was worth taking a minute to talk about what makes this particular program unique. So the first thing I'll say is that so myself and the summer staff that we hire, develop the whole camp program to suit our particular context and the age of kids that are being served by this program, which is generally 6 to 12, but sometimes that moves around a little bit. We don't use a pre-made canned program that's designed to kind of generically serve anyone. And then tweaking that, we start from nothing and build a whole program from there. And in conversation with parishes in preparations for the camp, then parishes are able to feed into that as well. And for each week of camp, that collaboration also spills into working with the community to make sure that the particular things that make your community special are meaningfully reflected in the content of camp. So sometimes that looks like having folks from the parish who aren't necessarily involved with the camp more generally come in to share something. So we've had people come in and do weaving or do an art project or do yoga or various things like that, or going out into the community to connect with things that are happening. So maybe visiting a farm or the beach or a museum, but really connecting, helping kids connect to the place where mostly where they live. Sometimes we have kids who are, just participating while they're on summer vacation somewhere else, but helping them really connect to the people and the place that they're in. And I think that collaboration that I've talked about in both these pieces, but that work between the camp staff and community volunteers, that is a really unique piece, this capacity building of, having professional people come and help your community develop the skills to be able to do this in a collaborative way. That's not something that really is offered, when you order something from resources.com or whatever. So those are some more of just the core things about who we are. All right. So this is a little bit about what we offer as a staff team for this program. So as I mentioned before, we offer training for volunteers. Probably most of you are familiar with the online safe faith training that folks have to do. So that is part of it, but we also do specific training on healthy boundaries for working with children. So that training is just an online module that people can participate in individually, like on their own time. Or in some places, they gather all the people who are working on camp together to participate in that. So that it, again, is an opportunity to build a little bit more community and have some discussion together. And we also do an in-person training session with camp staff and volunteers about the camp specifically. So the safe faith and healthy boundaries are pretty broad, how to safely do ministry with children. But this in-person training is about the camp in particular. So some of the ways that we do things in camp are a little bit different than people are familiar with. So for example, when we do art projects, they really are a reflective practice that are really focused on the process of creating art rather than, everyone cuts out the same things and glues them together in the same way, and you make something that looks really nice that you get to take home. Often things that kids do make things that are really nice, so they want to take home. But the point is really the process and the experience. So giving camp volunteers a chance to experience those things so that they can, so they're better equipped to be present in experiencing those things alongside campers. We also offer a thoughtfully developed camp program. So generally we start each day with a godly play story that kind of sets the theme for the day that's connected to a larger theme for the whole week of camp. And camp staff start in May, and they really are the ones that kind of define all those things. So those things aren't set yet, but that certainly is the structure from year to year. As I've mentioned, we offer staff to help facilitate the camp. So we hire 2 generally university-aged people in the summer who work out of the office in May and June doing the planning and preparations and meeting with parishes, and then they spend July and August on the road traveling around to parishes. And sometimes I'm at the camps as well, rarely for the full week, but sometimes, for a first day to make sure things get off on the right foot, or I just love camps, so sometimes I just pop by, but I'm not there on a super consistent basis. We also take care of the registration process. So almost exclusively, we do registration online. There are some parishes that just doesn't work, that they are paper registration people. So we can facilitate that where needed, but regardless of the format, we set up the registration forms, we receive them when they're completed, and we do the liaising with the grown-ups of campers in the lead up to camp. I'm just gonna have a sip of water, sorry.
Yeah, we have a challenge in our parish where there's
Yeah.
actually parts of the parish that have neither cell phone service nor internet
Yeah,
service.
right.
So
So
it's,
paper registration, that's the thing in a place like
yeah,
that.
pretty much.
Sure, yeah. And that very much is the case it's the same situation in parishes that have used paper registration in the past, that just is just not an option to do it online. We also prepare promotional materials. So we provide those to parishes digitally, and we, create printed resources that we distribute as well. So things like posters or postcards, and things to share on social media as needed. And we also bring along with us all of the supplies that are needed for camp. So we bring all of the paint, all of the basketballs, all of the whatever that is needed
Mm.
to make the week of camp happen. Um, and then what we ask of parishes is to arrange a camp facility. So in many places, this is just the church hall, but that's not the case everywhere. So sometimes there isn't a church hall, or sometimes it's just not the most appropriate space. So parishes take care of that. They recruit volunteers. So the bare minimum of volunteers, that we need to have 2 volunteers on site at all times. That's like the barest minimum. But 3 is really our target to have on site at all times, because that just gives us a little bit of flexibility. If something happens that someone needs to get pulled away. And our ratio for volunteers to campers is 1 to 5, but of course, with that minimum of always having 2, 2 to 10 is our minimum ratio. That is, this is a bit of an aside for this moment, but I will just say that is a lower ratio than is required by our insurance. But we intentionally set it that low because relationship building is such an important piece of the program. And when you have 1 grown up for every 8 kids, it can be really hard to do that relationship building, because you're just like trying to make sure everyone is where they're supposed to be. So keeping it a little bit lower, really, in our experience, has really facilitated that. And another aside, while I'm on asides, is that we don't count camp staff in the ratio. Again, that helps with the relationship building and the flexibility if someone is sick or needs to be pulled away. But also, it's thinking about the long-term sustainability of ministry in that place. So if we count our 2 camp staff in the ratio, that boosts it by 10 kids. So if you have 2 volunteers, let's say, or 3 volunteers, then you could have 25 kids, but then camp staff leave. And then suddenly, when you invite kids to participate in things, you only have capacity for that lower amount, which can just be a really hard thing to manage over time. So those are all the things about volunteers, hopefully getting ahead of some questions that you may have later. The next thing that we ask of parishes is to promote camp locally, using the resources that we provide. Our camp staff aren't in your communities and don't necessarily know the best channels to reach out to people. We don't know which Facebook pages are the hop-in spot to put your camp, to get the word out to everyone, or which radio station has the community bulletin board. So that is a local responsibility. We also ask parishes to provide billets for staff. And we have some, documentation about what makes an appropriate billet and all those kinds of things. We also ask for local input for the camp schedule. So I talked about that a little bit before. So making sure that your community is reflected in our week of camp. And the last thing on this list is to provide snacks. So we ask campers to bring their own lunch every day. Um, and generally, we encourage parishes to have a few backup lunches or some backup lunch supplies just in case someone comes without. But we do snack in a full day camp. We do snack twice a day, and parishes um, supply supply those and take care of preparing and serving that. All right. I'll just talk a little bit about the application process. It again is pretty straightforward. So there is an online form, um, and it is available. Like I could send it to parishes as a paper document as well. That isn't something that's been requested in the past, but it's certainly an easy enough thing to make happen. And after this session, I'll send an email just with some links and information and details. And I'll include the direct link to this registration form. That way you have quick and easy access to it. So the lead volunteer or the rector generally is the person who completes the application form. And very handily, it's through Microsoft Forms, and it tells me the average time that it takes someone to complete the form. So it only takes 7.5 minutes to fill out this form. So you don't need to put aside a lot of time. There's not, big thought-provoking questions. I mean, maybe some of the questions might bring things up for you that you want to get really deep in the answer for, but it doesn't have to be all of that. And then once I receive an application, I send an email or make a phone call or, whatever the most appropriate form of contact is to just confirm that I've received it. And we have a task group that works on community roots throughout the year of just a few volunteers from parishes that have participated in the program in the past. So I share the application with that task group. And then we, take a look at the application, think about where it might fit in our camp schedule. And then I get in touch with the parish to let them know our decision. I will tell you that right in this summer, we have 6 weeks of camp available in the schedule, and 3 of those weeks are filled. So generally what we say is that we consider applications as we receive them, and we certainly do up to a point. So once we fill the 4th spot, then we will stop reviewing applications as we receive them. And then the deadline is March 29th, which isn't very far away. So we'll just hold out until the deadline. That way, everyone gets a chance to get their application in, and then we can kind of consider all of the things together. So that's my pitch, that if you're going to apply quickly to get that 4th spot before you have to wait that extra week. Okay. That's my content. The big overview. Yes, Julia.
Okay. Is there any way to state preference of weeks in the application?
Yes, that's
Because
one of
we
the.
have yoga in the hall 2 days a
Oh,
week in the morning. And I'd want to see, they usually take a week or two off in the summer.
okay. Yes, so that is one of the questions is I think Chris, you get to rank them, right? Do you remember? Yeah. And as weeks of camp fill up, I remove them as options.
Yeah.
So you won't see an
Okay.
offering that's not real.
Okay. That's good to know.
There was a notes
Okay.
thing after, I believe. You could rank them and then include any notes. You could
Yes.
probably rank them and say these are ranked the 2 because they're the yoga vacations.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Um, I saw that it looked like no cost other than snacks and stuff.
Yes.
But donation would be appreciated. What type of donation level were you thinking? Anything or
Yeah. And like realistically, I know that not every parish can make a contribution. So parishes are just invited to donate if they're able to the level that they're able.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, well, why I'm asking is we just made a donation. The community pool is in need of some $300,000 to $400,000 of help, and they provide free lessons and
Yeah.
swims So they'll be out of commission at least not this summer, if not into the
Oh,
next one. So, so we just made a donation that way. So
right.
we sort of used our money, but
Right.
again, it's for kids in the community,
Yeah.
but we'll see what we can wrangle.
Mhm. Some other funding things that I didn't say, or money related things. We don't charge a registration fee for campers.
Excellent. That was going to be another question.
And there are ways that individuals could also contribute to camp if they wanted. So if a parish isn't able, there might still be there might
Okay.
be folks who could individually do that. It's through Canada Helps, which is a pretty reliable platform, and
Yeah.
we're up for that. And we're also, this is a new thing that we're going to try out this year, is community health boards have a wellness fund grant program.
Ah,
And their timeline for applications this year worked really well for us to submit an application for each community that's going to host camp. So for parishes that participate and do that, any funds that we receive through that, half would go to the parish towards snacks or whatever else, and half would go
okay.
towards supplies for the week of camp. So
Is that something your team would apply for on our behalf, or we would apply for with community health?
I think I would submit the application unless, someone was very keen to do it. And if a parish, if it was a parish in their third, so I guess I didn't say this either. Parishes can participate in this program for up to 3 years, and in each successive year, volunteers take on more and more leadership of the program. So a parish participating in the first year, for sure, I would do the Wellness Fund grant application with a little bit of collaboration from them. But if it was a third year, then we really start looking at what skills do you need? What particular things do you need to be able to do a camp on your own? And often funding is one of the things that folks need to
Yeah.
do a camp on their own. And lots of volunteers don't have experience of filling out grant applications. And
Mhm.
Wellness Fund grants are the application process is very straightforward.
Hopefully easier than roofs.
Yeah,
We've done several of those in last year.
yeah. So I certainly would never just lay that at the feet of volunteers and say, you
Mm,
must do this.
mm,
But a parish in a later year of the program, I would collaborate a bit more, like I would ask a bit more from them.
yeah.
That happen.
Like you fill it out, I'll check it.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, good. Okay.
I have a
Anybody else with questions?
volunteer question.
Yeah.
So here in this parish, we're looking at doing a 4-day camp. And I had one person who was interested, and she's here from now until, the spring, summer, no plans. And then she is away the weekend and first couple days that we'd have the camp here, was very interested in doing part-time. Like, as long as she was available to take part in the training, could we have, different volunteers, different days? Because I
Yes.
wondered if that might make it appealing someone else to say, well, so and so can only do Thursday, Friday. Could you be here Tuesday, Wednesday, and share out the responsibility?
Yeah, absolutely. And that does tend to be what happens. It
Okay.
is helpful when there's some consistency from day to day, like when it's completely new faces each day, that can be pretty hard for kids to, it's hard to, feel a sense of community and do that relationship building. But yeah, as long as there's some consistency, people kind of coming in and out has been okay. And I will just add just another small piece of context for a 4-day camp. The camp in Kentville will happen in the first week of July, which starts with July 1st, which is, of course, a holiday. So we'll do a 4-day camp there, but in general, we do the full 5 days.
Okay. Say for church stuff.
Yes.
Will you be looking for the old police checks or whatever for the
Yes.
volunteers?
So there's a maybe I'll just include a link to this when I send out that email. We have a volunteer policy and procedures document and kind of a job description or a position description for volunteers that outlines what screening and training is required. And
Yeah.
what we require is that volunteers be screened according to their parish safer church plan.
I'm only smiling because I've yet to find the parishes safe church profile, but okay, more impetus to go in the basement and go through boxes. Okay.
I will say something that I think will bring you comfort and doesn't bring me very much comfort. You are not the first person who has had that response when I've said that. So police record checks are part of that. I think that's
Okay.
apart from our insurance, but some parishes have different requirements on top of that. But that kind of is the baseline. Yeah.
Okay. For the content, and Mark, if you want to ask a question, make sure you jump in. For the content, is there, I think you said up front, creation was part of the bigger picture for this year.
Yes.
I know I know you haven't started working on the content, but is there a little more you could say about that?
Sure. I'll just pull up, we have like an example schedule for camp, and that might be a helpful thing to see.
Yeah, our next parish council meeting's after the deadline, so I'm going to be selling this via email communications.
Okay.
Fortunately, all the parish council members have email.
So this is what a standard week of camp looks like. So this is what we start with, and then we tailor it to include various community pieces. So camp starts at, oh, actually, I can zoom in this a little bit, and that'll probably make it easier for you to see for folks on a phone, perhaps. So we do try to keep, apart from the community pieces, we do try to keep a pretty consistent rhythm for the days. Because that just really works well for kids to know what's coming. So we start each day with opening worship, and then we have a snack and a break. And we have 3 exploratories that we don't do all of them each day at each camp if there's other things that are happening, but we plan and prepare for them. So create is an art exploratory. That's that process kind of exploratory reflective art. Discover is we do different science sort of experiments in that same kind of way of really inviting kids to wonder about what might happen and be creative and think about possibilities. And play is we do games in that slot, and all of the games that we play, we do a bit of a reflection and a debrief after finishing the game to talk about what happened, what we can learn from that experience. So the discover, lots of the creation care stuff will fit into that. And then we have another snack and break, and then closing worship. We generally, so in opening worship, we do a godly play story as part of that bigger time block that involves some, in godly play, they call it work time. In schools, they do something similar called centers, giving kids an opportunity to use different like tactile things to think about the story. So like watercolors or Lego or just a variety of things. And then in closing worship, we do some kind of experiential activity together. And I think that probably will be another piece that we kind of lean into creation a little bit, is in that time slot. Yeah, and then after closing worship, kids get picked up, go home.
Okay. Where would music fit into this?
During opening and closing worship is generally what happens. But again, like making sure that a parish is reflected in the camp is really important. So in parishes that have been super duper musical, there was one parish that had a musician in the congregation. So every day, the snack and break, the break was singing songs together.
Okay.
So there certainly is room in that way to, and if you look at the schedule, the exploratory blocks are really long, and that's really intentional, to really give kids a chance to dig into and think about what they're doing. But being so long also gives us some room to shorten them up a little bit to make space for other things. So if music is a thing.
Yeah, we've got a number of different music folk
Oh,
in the
cool.
parish, including the the organist, the choir master.
Great.
So yeah. Okay, good. So there's a couple options. Excellent. Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Any other schedule questions before I stop sharing this? Okay, great. One other schedule thing that I will say, I did think about just not even naming this as a possibility this year, but other camps have done it, so it will come up for people. Occasionally we have done half-day camps, which tend to work when there isn't much volunteer capacity in parishes, when there's only a few people and they don't have that much time to give. I really strongly encourage parishes to do a full day. The half days just end up being very, very short, and it's really hard to get at what we're trying to get at in just 3 hours a day. If that's all you can do, that's all you can do. But if it's possible to do the full, it really is worth it.
Okay, good.
Oh, Mark, you're muted, pal.
Paul, Mark,
All right.
discovered that I have to hop on to another meeting, but I'll be in tomorrow's session and catch up. So thank you, Allie. Thank you, Julia. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Chris.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Bye.
Sorry, yeah,
Yes.
you can, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was trying to ask a couple of questions there, but I
Oh. You just dipped out, but you appear to be back, but you're muted again.
Now, Mark, I would stop your video and unmute
Yeah.
because it sounded like you were having some bandwidth issues.
okay. Can you hear me now?
Can hear you.
Yes.
Oh, you're a maverick. I'm a dinosaur. The question I had, it actually goes back to the scheduling thing, sort of.
Okay.
I wondered if you could give me an example of a way a theme works and kind of as it flows through the creative time and like the science experiment time and those sorts of things.
Sure. Let me think. Okay, so a few years ago, our camp theme was the 5 marks of mission.
Right.
So each day we explored a different mark, and we had, like a catchy little one-word thing for each one. I can't remember what any of them. Oh, so the Care for Creation one, the word for that day was treasure. So throughout that whole day, like the art exploratory that we did was focused on creation. So I think the campers went for a walk and gathered leaves and sticks and things like that, and then made kind of a nature collage. And then for the Discover Exploratory, we did a thing about a water filtration thing. So we gave kids different supplies, different resources, and some dirty water to see what things might clean out the water. Which is a lot more fun than it sounds like. That sounds like a very dull activity, but it was really fun and exciting.
Yeah.
And then in the play tends to sometimes be a little bit more loose in terms of the direct connection of, what the game is that we're playing and the theme of the day. But then in the reflection, then we would ask some questions. So we might do like a problem-solving game that requires some teamwork. And then in the reflection, we might talk about, we ask like really open-ended questions like, how did everybody play their part in that game? I can't think of an open-ended question, but getting at the idea of how that's just like we all have to do our part to care for creation. And the worship pieces are really the easiest parts in some ways to make the connection to theme, because we just, do prayers or like interactive prayers or choose songs that directly connect to what we're getting at for that day.
So is there a way that you were mentioning before, the indigenous element? Is there a way that works? Does that work its way into, say, storytelling or spirituality?
It could. So we do a territorial acknowledgement with campers each day, using language that's similar. So godly play, if you're not familiar with it, there's like a kind of a particular cadence or rhythm or a way of storytelling. So we do a territorial acknowledgement that's similar to that involves some like wondering and questions. So that's a piece for sure. But it also could be a way of that community engagement piece. So if there's an elder that your church has a relationship with, we might invite them to come share a story or something like that. That definitely is one of the pieces where we could do some thinking about what that could look like in each particular context.
Okay. Very interesting. Thank you.
You're welcome.
About territorial land acknowledgements, we've got a difference of opinion in the parish about them.
Okay.
One is it's derogatory and it's lip service and isn't really meaningful.
Yes.
And I would love to have a way to counter that emotion. People are reading various things online, and have you come across that before, and how would you deal with that?
Absolutely, I've come across that before. So what I say is that for sure, often it is just lip service, often it is just words, but it is a reminder to bring our words and our actions in alignment with one another. So the territorial acknowledgement that I offered at the start of this, like, I don't say this to be braggy or look how great I am, but it just is a really practical example to point to. It wasn't just, about the treaty or about the past, but how can that inform what we're doing?
Yep. Yeah, I like that.
So that's what I encourage folks to do when they meet that resistance. So again, I think probably you've picked this up from the things that I've said, but I think that context is so important for everything. So thinking about why is it that you're gathering, and how does that connect with the work of reconciliation or with the lived experience of Indigenous people in this place, and how can we learn there? Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
It's not magic. I'm sure you know that.
Yep.
Still there are people that will continue to be resistant, but bit by bit over time, more and more people are open to it. So hopefully that will just continue on.
Excellent. Thank you. I think I've asked all my questions.
Okay.
I'm just looking at my notes. Yeah. I don't think I have another one.
I was just kind of thinking, perhaps one way to make the connection more real is, unless I misheard, there's opportunities to invite people from the community to come in and participate.
Yes.
I think you said that early on, and that might be a really wonderful opportunity to, if you're close to any, reserve community, to invite someone to come and do a smudging, or like I was saying before, tell a spiritual story, like, the great turtle or the great spirit or blues cap or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever would connect the most powerfully with the kids, because the creation connection is pretty obvious.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
And as well, part of the funding from PWRDF is really about two things, the talking about care for creation, and also we got that funding from the Hurricane Fiona response, holding this ministry up as a way of building resilience in communities. So when kids have more people that they're connected to, that they have relationship with, that makes us stronger when crisis hits. And I think the stuff that you're talking about, Mark, I think really resonates with that piece as well, like that really encouraging and strengthening connection between churches and Indigenous communities, I think is a really important part of that building resilience.
Yeah, absolutely. No, but there aren't too many communities in Nova Scotia that are that far away from a reserve.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got Bear River down the road. I just don't have any contacts.
Yeah. And even in places where there isn't a reserve super handy, Indigenous people don't all live on reserve. So there certainly is lots of possibility there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
good.
Okay. Anything else?
No, that's all I've got at the moment.
All right.
Yeah, me too.
I appreciate your time, Allie, coming to talk to us. Really helps.
Great. I'm very happy to do it. And if this always happens to me. I hit end, I leave a meeting, and I think, oh, I should have asked other things. You both have my email, and you can certainly get in touch about anything else that you might think about. And yeah, I'll send you that email that'll have the registration link and the information about volunteers. So that was our session. I hope it covered lots of information, answered questions that you maybe had, and filled in some blanks. And if your parish is considering applying for this program this year, I would love to hear from you. So up next, I'll just put up a slide with information on how to be in touch with me. Thanks again for watching this, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. Take care.